Hey guys, in this video we'll walk through how to use the fourth downs page. Use this page on every first down to know whether or not you're in four down territory. With that said, let's dive in. Okay, here we are at the fourth downs page. Now let's start with a quick overview of how this page is set up. The top two sections are the scoreboard and play details. These should mirror the current game scoreboard and can be adjusted using buttons and input fields. At the bottom of the page is a fourth down forecast chart. This is where you'll see fourth down decision recommendations, and these are based on the scoreboard and play details from above, and the matchup settings we customized in the previous video. This default chart's grayed out, but we'll go over it in detail when we walk through some examples. So let's do it. Let's walk through a hypothetical series where we get 3 first downs, so you can see it in action. Now on the screen, you can see the game scoreboard for our first down of this series. We'll use this information to update the Varsity AI scoreboard and play details. So for the scoreboard, let's change our score to 14 and change our opponent's score to 17. By default, both teams have 3 timeouts, so we don't need to make any changes here. And let's say our opponent received the second half kickoff, so we'll change that. For play details, let's change the quarter to the third quarter and the clock to 9:16. The default ball location is our own 45-yard line, so we don't need to change that. And the same goes for the default down and distance of 1st and 10. Now that we have everything updated, let's submit it and evaluate the results. First thing you'll notice on the fourth down forecast chart is the bars have all turned red. The bars are color-coded based on the model's fourth down decision recommendations. Green means go for it, yellow means attempt a field goal, and red means punt. The horizontal axis shows potential fourth down distances and their field positions. At the left end of the chart, you can see it's red if we end up facing 4th and 1 at our opponent's 46. And at the right end of the chart, you can see it's red if we end up facing 4th and 10 from our own 45. The vertical axis shows win probability, and the numbers above the bars represent how much win probability is at stake. We'll dive deeper into this shortly. But for now, to summarize this first sequence of the series, on first down, we know that if we end up facing 4th down in this sequence, punting is the best decision. For the sake of this demo, let's say that during this first sequence, we get a first down. Now on the screen, you can see the game scoreboard for our second first down of this series. Once again, we'll use this info to update the Varsity AI scoreboard and play details, so we can get updated fourth down decision recommendations. For the scoreboard, our opponent has 1 less timeout, so we'll change that down to 2. And for play details, we only need to change the clock and field position. So let's change the clock to 7:55 and the field position to our opponent's 32. With that done, let's submit this updated game state and evaluate the results. Now, all the bars have turned green from 4th and 1 through 4th and 10. This is also a really good time to take a deeper dive into what the numbers above each bar mean. The numbers represent the difference in win probability between your 2 best options on 4th down, where win probability is defined as the likelihood of your team going on to win the game, as opposed to focusing on the outcome of a single play. So if your team's in field goal range, this number represents the difference in win probability between going for it versus attempting a field goal. Otherwise, it's the difference in win probability between going for it versus punting. For example, let's take a closer look at the bar at the leftmost section of the chart, the one for 4th and 1 at our opponent's 23-yard line. And for the sake of this example, let's assume that when customizing this matchup, we set our field goal kicker's rating at 40+, making this field position within our kicker's range. So for this 4th and 1, the model's comparing going for it versus attempting a field goal. The 2.9 is the difference in win probability between these two options, and the green bar is telling us that going for it is our best option. In other words, it's the abbreviated version of saying, in this sequence, if we end up facing 4th and 1, if we go for it, we're expected to go on to win the game 54% of the time. If we attempt a field goal, we're expected to go on to win the game 51.1% of the time. So doing the math, we're expected to go on to win the game 2.9% more often if we go for it as opposed to attempting a field goal. Now let's talk about applying a decision threshold to these numbers and why. A decision threshold is just a number we'll use to get quick context about how much win probability is at stake. Let's walk through an example. We recommend teams start with a decision threshold of 5% and call numbers at or above the threshold hard recommendations and numbers below the threshold soft recommendations. Hard recommendations are the decisions you should be proactively committing to, like deciding on first down that you're going for it if you end up facing 4th and 3 or less. For soft recommendations, you keep your decisions more flexible. Using a decision threshold with hard and soft distinctions makes it quick and easy to get context about the magnitude of a decision so you can coach accordingly. And we recommend starting with a decision threshold of 5% because it allows for a lot of flexibility while making sure you don't miss any big decisions. And for what it's worth, over time, coaches typically become more aggressive and lower their decision thresholds. So, with these explanations out of the way, to summarize this second sequence of the series, on first down, we know that if we end up facing 4th down in this sequence, because all the bars are green, going for it is the recommended decision. But because all the bar values are below our decision threshold of 5%, we also know that these are all soft recommendations. So our decision is more flexible, meaning on 4th down, attempting a field goal and punting are also viable options. To keep this series moving, let's assume that we also get a first down during this second sequence and look at one last scoreboard. As we look at the game scoreboard for our third first down of the series, the only things that have changed and that need to be updated are the clock and the field position. This is the most common scenario on first downs. We're usually only going to need to update these two things, so it makes updates super quick and easy. So let's go to play details and make the updates. Let's change the clock to 6:30 and the field position to our opponent's 10-yard line. And we're done. Let's submit this updated game state and evaluate the results. Now we see the chart has a mix of go for it and field goal color-coded bars and a mix of hard and soft recommendations based on our decision threshold. Most importantly, we see that the values for 4th and 1 and 4th and 2 are above our 5% threshold. So to summarize this third sequence of this series, on first down, we know that if we end up facing 4th down in this sequence, 4th and 2 or less is a hard go, meaning we should be coaching to go for it if we end up in either of those situations. Going for it on 4th and 1 increases our win probability by 7.2% and by 6.2% on 4th and 2. It's also worth pointing out that we get the additional context of knowing 4th and 3 to 4th and 5 are soft goes, and for 4th and 6 or more, the model recommends attempting a field goal. And that's it. That's how to use the 4th downs page. Check out the other videos and please reach out with questions or for more information. Thanks.